If I'm the Buffalo Bills, I'm making the call to Mike Tomlin ASAP. Welcome back to Hold My Helmet. Your host, once again, Will Reichling. We're going to get into the divisional round of the playoffs, my reaction to that, going to predict the conference championship games, and we are going to go over the head coaching vacancies and the coaches that have gotten hired. So, like, subscribe, share. Want to start with Buffalo, Denver? Let's get into it right now. Let's go. I gotta be honest, Josh Allen was very emotional after the game, and I completely understand. One of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen, and he can't even get to, let alone get to a Super Bowl. So it's very frustrating for him. But I gotta be honest, in this game, a lot of it was on him. A lot of reckless decisions, lots of turnovers. The decision to be aggressive at the end of the half, that was probably Sean McDermott's decision. But the fact that he was running downfield and holding the ball out like this, looking like he was going to flip it back, that was a very foolish decision for Josh Allen. And it cost him the game, honestly. But obviously, he's a franchise quarterback. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks we've seen in NFL history. You're not getting rid of Josh Allen. Star quarterbacks don't get traded or released like that. It doesn't happen. So McDermott gets the boot. Sean McDermott gets fired as Bills head coach. And in my opinion, the GM deserves a ton of blame here. Because this roster was not good enough. And McDermott, I actually thought he did a decent job for what he was working with. I've said it all season long, Joe Brady's been very suspect as an offensive coordinator. I actually thought he called a great game in Denver, but for the majority of the season, he's been a very suspect OC, and that was McDermott's decision. And I've heard that McDermott did have a strong role in the personnel, very strong role, very strong presence, but it's not like Brandon Beane was taking a backseat on this. He definitely wasn't. He was definitely the main driver in the personnel. So he puts together this shit roster, and McDermott has to go out there, do the best he can, makes the playoffs every year, and he gets fired, and then you have Brandon Beane get promoted? Not only did he not get fired, he got promoted. With the roster the Bills have now, Brandon Beane got promoted. I don't see a lot of great draft picks by Brandon Beane. I just don't. There's some good ones in there, but there's nothing standing out, really. Keon Coleman, he's been benched half the season. Maxwell Hairston got hurt, so that's not really fair. But you have a lot of examples of high draft picks not working out in Buffalo. So not only did Brandon Beane not get fired, he gets promoted, and then Sean McDermott gets the boot. So is Sean McDermott an elite head coach? Obviously not. But I thought he was a very strong head coach who brought the Bills back into relevance and, given with Josh Allen, made the best of what he had with his roster. So McDermott out. Who's going to be the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills? And a lot of people are putting out there, Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll coming back to the Buffalo Bills, this time as the head coach instead of the offensive coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator for Josh Allen in some of his best statistical years. Their first year they made the AFC Championship game against Mahomes. That was probably Josh Allen's best statistical season, and Brian Daboll was his OC. Had some success in New York with Daniel Jones, made the playoffs his first season with a roster that really wasn't that talented, and then it kind of fell apart there. He rubbed some people the wrong way. Of course, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to bring back Brian Daboll, who works really well with Josh Allen, and produce a really, really strong offense in Buffalo. It makes a lot of sense to bring him back as the head coach. Josh Allen would thrive with him. But if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I'm making a call to Mike Tomlin or Mike Tomlin's agent, and I'm asking him if Mike Tomlin is interested in coaching Josh Allen. If he is interested in coaching Josh Allen, I'm making the call to Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm saying, what do you want? I'll give you anything. I wouldn't really say that, but I would say, what do you want for Mike Tomlin? Let me know, because I'll make an offer right now. Because I'm the Buffalo Bills. Sean McDermott was like a poor man's Mike Tomlin. Culture setter, defensive guy, but just couldn't get him over the hump. I know Tomlin has lacked in playoff success over the last decade, but look at his quarterback play. Shot Big Ben, Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, shot Aaron Rodgers, who was good this season, but not nearly the player he used to be. You give him Josh Allen and just tell him to handle the defense, and who knows, maybe you could bring back Brian Daboll as the OC. If he doesn't get a head coaching job and he's still out there, you could bring in Mike Tomlin and hire Brian Daboll as the OC. Now, we all know Mike Tomlin said he wanted a break, that he definitely wasn't going to coach this season. But I doubt he knew that there was an opportunity to coach Josh Allen out there. Because now that that opportunity is out there, that might change his whole point of view on coaching next season or not. So I'll make a call to Tomlin or his agent and say, hey, you want to coach Josh Allen? He says yes. I call up the Steelers, be like, look, what is it going to take to get Mike Tomlin? Because we want him right now. So I think that's the perfect option. Because if you're a Bills fan, you've had defense, yes. You've had Sean McDermott, yes. But you're like right on the cusp of taking, you just need one more step up to get to the next step. And Mike Tomlin just needed a quarterback to get to that next step. You combine Mike Tomlin and a star quarterback, I think that's a Super Bowl contender. I'm sorry. Even with the roster they have right now. Yes, they need more pieces. Not confident with Brandon Beane now being the president to get those pieces. But like with their current configuration right now, you bring in Mike Tomlin with Josh Allen. You let Mike Tomlin focus on the defense. Even keep Joe Brady, for fuck's sakes. I think that's a Super Bowl contender right there. So if I'm in Buffalo Bills, the first call you should be making is to Mike Tomlin or Mike Tomlin's agent. Then if you want to go Dable, that's fine. Then if you want to go Jeff Hafley, whatever. But your first call should be to Mike Tomlin. Denver getting a big win, though, against Buffalo. And Bo Nix played really well, really strong moving around with his feet. And speaking of his feet, fractured his ankle. And it looked a little weird. At the end of the game, he was kind of walking off the field very, very slow. And I'm like, is he tired? Is he kind of just taking it in that he's about to go to the conference championship game? I'm like, and then I see him wincing on the sideline, literally wincing, like looking like he's in a lot of pain. I'm like, oh, he might be hurt. But, the commentators aren't talking about it, so it might not be a big deal. Fractures his ankle. Done for the playoffs. You're in the conference championship game, and your second-year rising star quarterback out for the season. So Jarrett Stidham's going to start now. And look, not saying Jarrett Stidham's some, end-all, be-all great backup, but he's been in the system for multiple years now. He knows Sean Payton's playbook. Sean Payton got him for this reason, to be the backup of this team for years, and he's been there for a while. So people saying, oh, what free agents are out there? First off, I don't even know the playoff rules. Can you even get a free agent right now? I'm not sure about that. Regardless, this is your best option right now. Jarrett Stidham being in this system for 3 years as the backup, knowing the playbook, is your best option right now. I probably still would have went Patriots if Bo Nix was starting. It would have been a lot closer, but I probably still would have went Patriots. But there's very good reason to believe that if Bo Nix was starting this game, the Broncos had a huge chance to win this game. Probably was going to be the favorites being at home. Now that kind of, I don't want to say goes out the window, because you never know. At any given Sunday, Jarrett Stidham's been there for years. He might come in and honestly thrive because the Patriots don't really know how he looks on tape. It's been so long. But, you're really at a diminished opportunity now. Now you're really, your room for error is near zero. So I feel bad for the Broncos. I do. But if this defense is playing like how the Texans defense has been playing and how they were playing earlier in the season, I'd feel a little better. But the defense has kind of fallen off a little bit. And that Patriots offense just scores so easily. Really easily. Yes, they turned the ball over against the Texans, but they also had 3 drives where they just went right down the field and scored points. And Drake May was making throws all over the field. So it's going to be tough. We'll see how it goes. I'll get into the predictions in a little bit. But, it's going to be rough with Jarrett Stidham, but don't be surprised if it is close. The Chicago Bears, what a season that was. And I know as a Bears fan, it probably sucks because you're like, we actually had a shot to go to the Super Bowl. We actually had a team and a quarterback and a head coach to go to the Super Bowl. And we got really close, and we almost beat the Rams in that game. So, I understand that the loss, that tough loss, is kind of devastating, and you're probably a little negative after the game because Caleb threw a bad pick in overtime and everything that happened. But there's a lot to be very proud about if you're a Chicago Bears fan. You guys should be proud of that team this season, because almost every Bears game you watch was the most entertaining game on the slate for the weekend. The Bears were just such an exciting team this season, not only because they were pulling wins out of their asses, because you had a quarterback making explosive throws. And Caleb Williams, yes, he was a sub-60 completion percentage quarterback this season. You want to be at least 65 or over. He was not even at 60. So that's definitely a problem. But when you're making explosive plays late in games while you're trailing to give your team the lead and the win over and over again, multiple weeks in a row, I'll take a 58 completion percentage quarterback. And I know being in year 2, that's only going to improve. He's only going to get better. I think he gets north of 62 next season because it's going to be more comfortable for him. The game's going to come slower. They already have an established run game. And now with that run game, you build more on your play action scheme. And I just think Caleb can maybe transition from, he's definitely a top 12 quarterback after this season, to next season, maybe he gets in the top 7, top 6. I see growth now coming from Caleb. From week 1 to that divisional round, there was clear growth. It wasn't linear. It was up and down, but the beginning product to the end product, you see a clear growth and leap. And I think he does that next year too. I think the Bears are a legitimate Super Bowl contender next year if they draft well. They need to hit on a bunch of defensive pieces, but I was very impressed against the Rams, that defense. You have a good DC in Dennis Allen. Might not be a good head coach, but he's a good DC. And I was very impressed. So the Bears, your defense played, they came to play against that Rams offense, elite receivers. They were pressing them in man, and they were actually locking down Puka and Devontae Adams, those corners. I think Kyler Gordon, had a tough week a couple weeks ago, but I think he's a stud, Kyler Gordon. You had Jalen Johnson coming off the injury, looks a little slower. Tyreek Stevenson's a really strong player, but, they definitely need corners. They need a pass rusher. They need a linebacker, but, they really impressed me in that game. And maybe that's something to build on next season for that defense. But Chicago is a Super Bowl contender next season going into it. The Lions are going to be back. The Vikings will probably be a little better. The Packers are definitely going to be back. I don't know if they necessarily win the division next year. It's probably the best division in football. But they're definitely a strong candidate to win it. And they definitely are going to be one of the top 5 to 7 favorites to make and win the Super Bowl. So, Chicago... Definitely, I understand being upset, but you have a lot to be excited about after that, even that game and that loss. So, Chicago, great season. The Rams played a clean game. Was going to be tough. You're in the cold, on the road, with a warm weather team. It was going to be tough, and they got it done. Very smart football. Got weird for a little bit, but Stafford and McVay get it done. Now they're going on to play the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game. We all know how those games are probably some of the weirdest games of the season, with Darnold with six interceptions in 2 games, but somehow won 1 game where he came back in a crazy comeback. So that's going to be an exciting game. But the Rams played a clean football like they've been playing all season. They were, I think, the least penalized offense this season, and they didn't turn the ball over. Stafford got a little weary the last couple of weeks with turnovers, but he kind of brought it in check this week, and it was a good game for the Rams. You knew it wasn't going to be a high-scoring game, but you knew down the stretch that the only way the Rams are going to win this game is if Stafford made big throws, and he made a big one to Devontae Adams, huge one to Devontae Adams, and the Rams get the win in a tough game at Chicago, going to play the Seahawks now. Speaking of the Seahawks, completely dominated the Niners on both sides of the ball. And the 49ers got... This is the funniest part. The 49ers, probably the most injured team in the history of the league any season, had even more injuries this game. McCaffrey got banged up, came back in, but then Tonjes going out. It just never ends for this team. Makes you question what's actually going on there. Is there something they're doing in their training program that's kind of making their players more prone to injuries? I really think it's just a luck thing. I really think it's just a weird luck situation thing. But that sums up the season. Just injuries on top of injuries, and then, even more injuries in the final game. So, in my opinion, I think Kyle Shanahan deserves Coach of the Year. I think that's the type of season he had. With all these injuries, they were in the game in Week 18 for the 1 seed. Who would have thought that? They almost got the 1 seed. And then if they won this game, which they weren't even close, they got blown out. They could have made the NFC Championship game, though. So to me, Kyle Shanahan would be the Coach of the Year. It's going to go to Ben Johnson. Let's be honest. It's going to Ben Johnson after this season. But to me, Kyle's a strong second. Even with Liam Cohen having the year he had, Kyle just put on a coaching masterpiece this season. And Robert Saleh. So, hats off to the Niners, too. It's a little different situation than Chicago. The Niners, they've been winning for a while. They were in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. A couple years before that, they were in the conference championship game and the Super Bowl the year before that. So, they've been in the playoffs a lot. They've been there, done that. The funniest thing is, I think this is the first time in, I don't know how many years it's been, but it's been quite a few years. The 49ers have either made the conference championship game at least, or not make the playoffs at all. So when they make the playoffs, they've at least made the conference championship game for I think the last 10 years. This is the first year they actually haven't done that. They lost in the divisional round. And Seattle, losing Charbonnet is going to be a big deal moving forward, especially against the Rams. But that was the exact game that I said before going into this game that you have to play. You got to play your game, run the ball. Kenneth Walker had a big day. Darnold played within the system, didn't turn the ball over. The defense was flying all over the field. You had special teams involved with Shaheed. Exactly how the Seahawks have to play. And they're just so stacked everywhere. Not that they're stacked everywhere, but they're just really good everywhere. They don't have a hole in the team. All the way down to special teams. The long snapper, goddammit. So that was expected. But now Seattle Rams, that's going to be a classic for sure. So in the Texans-Patriots game, I want to talk about the Patriots first for a little bit. The Patriots are for real. They're definitely for real. They were never frauds. Against the best defense in the NFL, they were still putting in work and still scoring points. And yes, CJ Stroud and the Texans had a ton of turnovers, but the Patriots still put together 3 really strong drives, touchdown drives, in which Drake May was throwing dots all over the field, and on those drives, they didn't have a turnover to start the drive. It was just straight, standard touchdown drives. And Drake May, I just saw him throwing dots all over the field. The guy just leveled up completely in year 2. Completely unexpected. Like, I didn't think he was going to be an MVP candidate in year 2. I thought the Patriots would be like a borderline playoff team, 8-9, 9-8. Didn't think they make this leap this quick. Just shows how quick, if you get a quarterback and head coach right, how quick everything could turn around. But against the best defense in the NFL, Drake May was throwing dots. For the Texans, is CJ Stroud just not a good quarterback? I still think he is. They haven't been able to develop an offensive line for him fully, and I've never liked their offensive weapons. They tried to address that in the draft with a couple of wide receivers, and those wide receivers had some moments. But maybe some of that's on Stroud too, but like, this just not, ever since year 1 where CJ Stroud had one of the best rookie seasons of any rookie quarterback ever, you've had some steady regression. You know, he wasn't good last year in the regular season. Then he won a playoff game where he looked strong, and we were like, okay, maybe he's back on track. This season, struggled mightily in the first half of the season, started to get it going in the second half, but I feel like the defense was more carrying them than CJ Stroud and the offense. And then they win a playoff game again, where CJ Stroud was not good, turning the ball over left and right. The Steelers were just even worse. And now, probably the worst game of his career against the Patriots. From the Texans organization point of view, I understand being worried about this. Completely understand. I still think he's a good quarterback. Not like a top 10 quarterback, but I think he's a top 15 franchise quarterback. And I obviously wouldn't extend him just yet. Obviously pick up his 5th-year option. I think the majority of this is they just don't have enough weapons and firepower on offense. They just don't. You know, their running backs, Nick Chubb, is washed ever since he had that devastating injury. Woody Marks, young player, pretty good, but not a star running back by any means. Schultz is on the decline now as a tight end. Nico Collins is great, but he's hurt a lot, honestly. And they got these rookie receivers that, like, they all had their moments, Noel, Higgins, and just no one really stood out from the other. And you had Tank Dell, who didn't play all season, had a devastating injury last season, missed the entire season, so that kind of sucked. So I don't know, is it more on Nick Caserio not developing an offensive line and not giving CJ Stroud enough weapons? Or is this on CJ Stroud for not elevating these weapons that he has and for not making the most out of the offensive line he has? So it's a toss-up. I would obviously see he's not going anywhere. He's going to ride out another season. And if he starts off slow, maybe you do bench him for Davis Mills. I don't really know at that point, but if you're a Texans fan, obviously there's some worry coming in, but I still think he's a capable franchise quarterback. He just needs help. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Mahomes. He needs help on the offense to thrive. And you see when he's on and he's making good throws, he makes some really strong throws from the pocket, especially over the middle of the field. When he has confidence, he could look like a franchise borderline star quarterback. When he's not confident, it could look like that. So a lot of things to address in the offseason for the Texans, but they need to get, I think their defense is set, and it's young, and it's cheap. They need to go off. You're going to pay Will Anderson, probably extend him. But other than that, you got to get Danielle Hunter back. You still have a lot of young players that are on the cheaper side. And you got to invest offense in the draft this coming offseason. On to some head coaching hires. So the New York Giants. So I'm from New York. Lots of friends and family, Giants fans. New York Giants hire John Harbaugh. And obviously, this is the best hire they could have made. This is the best hire possible for the New York Giants. They needed a culture builder. He provides that. Got a little weird for a second. You know, he agreed to the offer. Then it was still on hold because they were still trying to negotiate on who's in charge of who, what's the hierarchy, and then it ends, they get an agreement, and John Harbaugh himself said he answers to the owner. So it's going to be a weird relationship between him and Joe Schoen. At that point, they might as well just let Schoen go and let Harbaugh bring in his guys, his personnel people, which probably a lot of them will come from the Ravens, and the Ravens have shown to be a good personnel staff. So Joe Schoen, like, I'm not sure what John Mara's obsession is with Joe Schoen. Like, he's had a few good drafts and a few good draft picks, but he's also had a lot of shitty picks, a lot of bad free agent acquisitions, and, you know, there's nothing really that would make you say, we gotta keep Joe Schoen. You know what I mean? Like, it really isn't any, maybe because you're not too confident in Harbaugh from a personnel standpoint, because he had a big say in Baltimore, but he wasn't, like, the personnel guy. So maybe you have some reservations about that, which is why you keep Joe Schoen around. But, like, this is the beginning of the end for Joe Schoen, obviously, because if I was the Giants, we would let Harbaugh, okay, bring in your personnel people. You're going to bring in a lot of people from the Ravens? The Ravens have some great personnel people. So it's going to get a little weird, but as far as expectations for John Harbaugh and the Giants, your expectations to make the playoffs next season. Nothing short of that. If you get a healthy Malik Neighbors back and a healthy Cam Scalaboo back, your expectations are to be a playoff team. Because look at your division. You have Philadelphia, who they have a great roster, but the coaching's kind of up in the air with their OC. And what is Jalen Hurts? It's just a lot of, is A.J. Brown going to get traded? A lot of drama going on there and unknowns. You got Dallas, who, yes, they have a great offense. They got to bring back Pickens if they can. But great offense, but also, like, do we trust their head coach? Had a nice season offensively, but again, their defense, their corners are suspect. I would definitely take the Giants pieces over the Cowboys pieces right now. Then you got the Commanders, who are like ridiculously old. Jaden Daniels with a severe injury. Dan Quinn, we don't even know if he's a long-term solution at head coach. Getting rid of their offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury. They're kind of in shambles right now too, and like I said, extremely old and extremely injured. Then you got the Giants with a couple of good pieces there. The Giants have some good pieces. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns had a great season. If Abdul Carter can turn into a player, those are three elite pieces on your D line. Then you have Thibodeau, who's really been an underperformer, but at the same time, great defensive line. You have your left tackle, your franchise left tackle, Andrew Thomas, who's a solid player. Malik Neighbors is clearly a top 10 wide receiver when he's healthy. Cam Scalaboo adds an element of toughness that the Giants have not had since Brandon Jacobs. They definitely have, in my opinion, the best coach now in the division. Unless John Harbaugh shows that his Ravens stint was a fluke, which I doubt it was, you already have the best head coach in the division now. And you might have the second best roster. I think you're neck and neck with Dallas right now, but I would give the edge to the Giants. But I think the Giants have better key pieces. The Cowboys might have a better offense with their two receivers and their running back and Dak, but I think overall team, like defense, I'll take the Giants defense. They both have shitty secondaries. I'll take the Giants D-line over the Cowboys D-line. And I'll take the Giants coach now over the Cowboys coach. So you now are probably the second best roster in the division. You're the best head coach in the division. You should be a playoff team next year. So there's no excuses for the New York Giants. The Falcons hire Kevin Stefanski. I think this is the best possible hire the Atlanta Falcons could have made. Because let's be honest, the big names are not going to go here. John Harbaugh was never going to go here. Mike Tomlin, if he was available, was not going to go here. They have a talented offense. If they bring back players, I think Pitts is on he might be a free agent this offseason, but they bring him back. They have a talented offense. They have all the talent in the world on offense. They need someone who knows offense to come in and take control of this offense. And I've always liked Kevin Stefanski. We don't know what his role was in the whole Deshaun Watson debacle trade situation in Cleveland. We don't know if he was one of the people that was pushing for that, if he was against that, if he was just kind of sitting to the side. We don't know. But he made the playoffs with Baker in his best year as a Brown. Then he made the playoffs with Flacco and with three other quarterbacks starting that year. Made Joe Flacco the comeback player of the year. I think they won some games with Dorian Thompson-Robinson that year. Like, it was just a great coaching clinic for Kevin Stefanski that year with Joe Flacco. I think he's a good coach. I think he had an awful situation in Cleveland with an owner that's impulsive and a GM that's a little overrated, and not like Atlanta's better, but it's definitely better than Cleveland. So you go to an organization with a good roster. You keep Jeff Ulbrich. You have a top 5 defense there, pieces all over that defense, and you have an offensive roster with one of the best players in the league, if not the best, in Bijan. You have a dominant wide receiver in Drake London. I'm pretty sure Kyle Pitts is a free agent, but he finally kind of butted and rose to the occasion this season. So you have Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney finally came on, and now your quarterback situation. I think Kevin Stefanski can get the most out of Michael Penix, but I got to be honest with you. I think they restructure Kirk Cousins' deal, and they bring back Kirk Cousins, because Stefanski worked with him in Minnesota. They had success with Stefanski as his OC, and Kirk Cousins showed, being further away from that injury that he had, that devastating injury, that he actually looks like a capable starter again. Towards the end of the season, he looked like a capable player again. He got his legs back under him, was making some strong throws, and I thought Kirk Cousins looked pretty well. Similar situation to the Giants. Kevin Stefanski's coming to the Falcons to get them to the playoffs. So if Michael Penix is not ready to get you to the playoffs, you got to go with Kirk Cousins. So I could see some kind of situation where they restructure Kirk Cousins if he agrees to it, because where else is he really going to go at this point with that contract? Restructure Kirk Cousins' contract, and Kevin Stefanski trying to get the most out of Kirk Cousins. Like, that's a very realistic situation here. So if you're the Falcons, this is a win. This is a good day for you if you're a Falcons fan, because you brought in a grown-up offensive head coach that has proven with the right system and the right quarterbacks can get the job done and get you to the playoffs. So with this roster, offensively, I would be very excited with Kevin Stefanski coming in. So that's it, guys. Stay tuned for my next video. I'm going to predict the conference championship games. So stay tuned. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon, and take care. Bye.